Today's guest is a friend of mine from the Instagrams. He goes by the name of Texas Anarchist, or it's a Texas_anarchist, is it not?
Yeah.
All right. And so we're going to have us a little conversation about anarchy, because it's just a fun topic that it seems like you've just discovered it recently and are going full bore with it. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about you to let us get to know who you are a bit, and then we'll just roll right into it and see what kind of trouble we can get ourselves into.
Hi you guys. My real name is Connor, but I go by Texas Anarchist. Just Texas. I was born in California, surprisingly. I really don't like it, but I'm in Texas, and I was a conservative about 6 months ago, but once the bump stock ban and everything happened, I started doubting Trump and everything, and then now I'm a full-blown anarchist. It was just a downhill spiral. I just became a libertarian, and then from then on, it was just down, down, down. I went full ANCAP, and then now I'm an anarcho-individualist.
You said a downward spiral? That's quite a dark way to put it.
Technically downward, but it's up.
Yeah, I would consider it an ascension to a higher idea, something that most people are incapable of even wrapping their minds around. It's wild. Yeah. The speed at which you went from being a conservative in the middle of California to a straight up full blown anarchist. That's amazing. I guess you learned a little quicker than I did. Started out. I probably started out as a liberal-ish, but that was before I even knew what any of that meant. Ended up moving off into a kind of a Republican, constitutionalist kind of guy. I don't really know, other than the talk radio shows I was listening to, why that came about. But after that, the same thing as you, kind of went into libertarianism, and then ended up eventually I've only been an anarchist a few years.
Wow.
So and I'm 35 now, and it's probably been 5 years, I'd say, since I even heard of the idea of anarchism. And just it started really wrapping my mind around it and understanding what it means. So what does it mean to you? What do you when somebody asks you, because anarchy obviously has some kind of a
lot of bad names.
Negative connotations around it. What does it mean to you?
Full freedom. A lot of people, I guess that's cliche. There's more to it. There's the ability to just be left alone. It's like I don't want my life to be ruled by someone. I want to be able to go into the woods and live in a cabin and not be bothered. Like,
your dream is to live in a cabin and not be bothered.
It sounds dumb, but like, you can't really do that, because like, if you collect rainwater, you get fines, you get arrested if you don't have tags, you have to pay taxes. So it's like, if I can't do what I want, it's like you should be able to do whatever you want as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else.
Yeah, that sounds like a libertarian viewpoint, that they tend to be along the lines of small government in terms of just the non-aggression principle. You're familiar with, I assume.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Right. So I don't have to explain to you what that entails, and it's like. I agree with you. I mean, it's like, as long as you're not hurting anybody else, who really gives a shit what people do? I mean, I don't know if you go as far as I do, but even as far as, say, drugs, as far as the Second Amendment rights, not the government Second Amendment rights, but just our God-given rights. For lack of a better term, as an atheist, I don't have a better term for that, but you understand what I'm saying. Just our natural.
I'm a Christian, so like every time I say like drugs should be legal, it's like, oh, but God, in the Bible it says don't cloud your mind. It's like, yeah, I'm a Christian, someone else isn't. You can't put your morals on someone. We have free will for a reason. It's like, just let them do what they want. Let me do what I want.
Yeah. I guess God says don't do them, but he also doesn't say make them illegal so nobody else can do them without being put in jail for it.
Same with like how Jesus said, help people. He didn't say steal their money and give them to them, like taxes. So I like that one.
Wait, Jesus wasn't about taxation?
He was.
I'm confused. I feel like Jesus was the guy that go in and take people like 10% off the top of everybody's money.
Actually, I really found this because, like, a lot of people say, like, there's a lot of conservatives that, like, oh, God created America or whatever. And then there's, like, a bunch of Bible verses where it won't say sinners, it'll say tax collectors and sinners. So, like, they're putting tax collectors on the level of sinners.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I tend to agree with you on that. I guess there's a special reason why when we hear about tax collectors, our skin crawls just a little bit.
Darn feathers.
so what? Yeah, I know you said something about the the bump stock ban, and that was for you the straw that broke the camel's back. What was it about that particular topic that just made you kind of see the light, so to speak?
It was mainly like so. It was not the fact that he banned them, but all of the Trump supporters that were like, "Oh yeah, it's fine. It's stupid. You're not going to need it. It's not a Second Amendment infraction or infringement, which it 100% is. It's an armament." So it was kind of a mix of him doing it and then everyone who was defending it while claiming the Second Amendment.
Oh, just because of the fact that that's our guy, we're gonna defend him no matter what. I seem to remember a bunch of people doing the exact same thing with Obama. No matter what you told these people, he was like their god, and he did no wrong. And now I see the same kind of just dogmatism coming out of the right when it comes to Trump. You sit there and look online and you see these people and they got their big American flags, MAGA this, MAGA that. You know, he can do no wrong. And when you point out some things that you might be critical of,
you're a liberal.
You're automatically a liberal. You're a social justice warrior. We need to block you because you're not supporting the cause. It's like, Jesus, man, y'all need to calm down. Like, there's nobody in the world worthy of that level of attention. Not even Jesus. I'm sorry. Like, you gotta be able to stop and have a rational mind about things once in a while.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the end of the world. So let's say I'm one of your friends at school and you've just told me you said you're like 17, right?
Yeah, 17.
Okay. So let's say you're at school and one of your friends, you're in a conversation and one of them says, or they ask you about your political beliefs and you say, well, I'm an anarchist. What is the reaction typically?
I've had this happen twice just in the past 3 weeks, actually. And it's always, but without government, wouldn't people get murdered? It's always that same, and then who would build the roads? I hate the roads argument, but it actually does happen. And it's always like, I always explain, like, well, there's the thing where, I mean, people are going to die anyway. People already die. People already get murdered. People already get raped. A law isn't going to stop people who want to do something. And they're like, yeah, but it's a law. They have to follow it. And they just don't understand. Like you said earlier, it is really something a lot of people don't know how to grasp because it is something a lot of edgy teenagers connect to, but it is a huge philosophical and economic system, and you actually do have to look a lot into it. There's a lot of research to be had.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of implications that come into play when you simply say, I believe no rulers. I believe that there's not supposed to be another group of people with the monopoly on force that has the ability to use that force on this other group of people that are supposed to be under that law, so to speak. And we see it all the time. Like you said, basically compared to what? I mean, people are going to die if we don't have government. Compared to what? Look what's going on with all these foreign wars and shit that's going on. And then we wonder why all these, terrorist cells keep popping up. It's like, you guys when I bring this up, nobody can argue against it. I'm like, listen, let's imagine you're over here in the United States and some big-ass superpower country keeps coming over and dropping bombs on your family. You're going to be a little pissed off, too.
You're going to go over there and shoot a bomb. You're going to do something.
Yeah.
Your kid gets bombed. Your kid blows up. I'm not going to be happy, and I'm not going to just sit there.
Yeah, and what are you going to do? You're going to go and collect a bunch of your friends. You're going to go on a big old huge campaign against the United States. Look what these people did. You're going to show all these pictures on your phone about your house that used to be there, or whatever the case is. I'm just over here kind of minding my own business. Beating my wife. As a Muslim, and you know what I'm saying. Just because they do some shit wrong, don't mean that you need to be going over there. And because this is the one big argument I hear all the time, especially my neighbor. We get in this conversation constantly. And the conversation goes something like this. It's like the conversation goes something like this. He says, well, if we don't go over there and take care of the problem over there, then they're going to come over here.
My dad says that every time I talk to him about this stuff.
And what
it's like,
what do you tell him?
They're a threat. You have to like. It's like, but it's not my problem. Yet once they attack me, it's a force of aggression, and I can attack them back.
So
But it's not to the point where I can just attack them for something they might do. It's just like, I'm not going to go shoot a black guy in the hood because he might commit a crime later on, or I'm not going to go shoot a boss because he might eventually become like tyrannical or whatever.
Like this idea of a preemptive strike is insane. It just is.
Yeah.
It's like it's fear based, really. There's no logic to it. It seems logical. I mean, people of I'd say people of lower IQ can sit there and hear that phrase. Well, if we don't go over there and take care of the problem, then they're going to come over here. Like, you could hear that. That in itself sounds like it makes sense. It sounds logical, but really the implicit conversation you're having there is, I'm scared that they're going to come over here if I don't take care of the problem now.
Yeah.
Even though I don't have any evidence to support that.
Mm-hmm. It's all, honestly, it's like you said, all out of fear. Like Waco Siege. Like, yes, they had guns, but you don't go in there and burn their house and kill the women and children inside of it.
Why not?
It's because you have no proof they're going to do anything. You have no proof they're going to commit any actions. You have no proof. Like, those guns that, like, in Waco Siege, all of the guns were legal.
Oh, I'm sorry, the guns in what?
In Waco Siege.
Oh,
you know what it is?
No. Say that a little slower for me, because I think I'm missing what you're saying.
The Waco Siege.
Oh, Waco, I guess.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, so, like, all the guns were legal, but they went in there and killed a bunch of people, burned it down, the ATF. It's like, you don't do that. It's the same thing with the Middle East. Just because they can do something doesn't mean you have to do something too.
So what if I'm a guy in the Middle East and I actually am colluding with a bunch of my friends and planning to come over and take some action against the United States? Then what? Should
we
go take those guys out? I'm playing devil's advocate here, of course.
Yeah, I know. See, I have two sides to that. It's like, yes, it is bad. It's not good, but you can always, if we have a military and there are people that don't have any shooting experience, don't have any experience with fighting like that at all. So it's you can wait for them to come there and just get rid of them when they get on your shores with threat, or when it comes into my countries don't exactly have the right to exist because there's no what made them say, hey, I'm going to just have all these people here and I'm going to rule them. So there's two sides to it. I'm not 100% sure how to say, like, in that case, I would probably lean more towards if you weren't there in the first place and you didn't aggress first to create that, then it wouldn't happen in the first place.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess at this, on the one hand, it's like, why are they, like you said, why are they even planning to come and want to murder us anyway?
Yeah.
Why are they planning these attacks? It doesn't take two brain cells to rub together to realize, oh, we've been over there bombing the shit out of them. Maybe they might be a little upset. At the same time, it's like, at what point, a lot of people's line is a little bit different. I think you and I might agree that the line is crossed when we are aggressed against. That's when we take action. That's when we take retaliatory action, even. Because we want to make sure that shit don't happen again, and use that as an example to others. Hey, if you try that again, this is what's going to happen to you too. That makes sense. That's a self-defensive maneuver. There's nothing inherently immoral or wrong about that, and it does not violate the non-aggression principle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess even if they are sitting in their country and they have a bomb in their house, they have the map to somebody's U.S. home, they have all the information they need. Look, there's nothing you should do about it. There's nothing you can do about it, except maybe, hey, call them up and say, look, listen, maybe we can work something out. Or something. I mean, there's other methods you could do, diplomacy and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's like, until that person actually commits some kind of crime, or at least with, beyond a reasonable doubt, you catch them in the act of coming into your country, bringing in these weapons that they're not supposed to be bringing in, then you got other ways you can tackle the problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm kind of a purist on this myself, especially. I know based on some of your posts, you're kind of a purist on the gun control type laws. Are you one to even say that, you know, if I want to own a tank at my house?
Oh, I honestly, I'm a huge advocate for owning tanks, because my main belief with guns is if the government can have it, I can have it. So, and where that stops, I would say, is with nukes, because I don't believe the government should have nukes either, because I'm more of a green anarchist, so more environmentalist. So, I mean, when you drop a nuke, that destroys everything, all the ecosystems. So, like, but up to that point, anything the government can have, you can have. Government can have a tank, you can have a tank. If a government creates, like, a laser weapon, I can have that laser weapon, if I can afford it.
Well, by God, I'm bound to determine to find something we disagree on.
But if we get to markets, I think we'll get there.
So where did you even get this idea from? Because this is not exactly, you know, I assume you go to public schools where you're at?
Yeah.
And it's not exactly something that the public school system is interested in teaching people about. This is something you would have had to found out on your own through other channels. Yeah. What was that path? What did that path look like?
About anarchy, right?
Yeah.
Surprisingly, it was when I first became a libertarian. I took one of the tests that, like, shows you what parties you align with, and then the top one was 100% anarcho-capitalist. So I started looking into it, and then I was like, oh, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And then it just kept, like, my views just started to mold around that. And then I started to realize, oh, wait, this actually makes a lot of sense, and this is viable. And it makes a lot more sense than having a totalitarian government, or just little, because it can always grow.
Yeah, it makes sense that a former conservative would then become an anarcho-capitalist based on you already have these core beliefs. Anarcho-capitalism does basically is the same thing except for no government. I mean, it's kind of the next logical step, in my opinion. And so I can understand. That's kind of why I consider myself an anarcho-capitalist as well, for the very same reason. Because, you know, I do believe in a lot of the same principles, and I do have some left-leaning ideas like gay marriage, whatever. That's kind of falls under.
I don't count that as left-leaning. That's
well. I mean, it used to be very. Yeah, it used to be very left-leaning. This was a very anti. You know, if you were anything, if you even considered gay marriage as, you know, a good thing at all, you were not part of the right at all. Like, that was a no-no. It's fun to watch and see how people make this transition. I'm always curious about the stories of how that comes about. So it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you took a test online. It said, hey, by the way, you're an anarcho-capitalist, and you're like, what is that? So you basically didn't have to change any of your views, really. You just figured out that you had the label wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Before, when I found with a lot of conservatives and a lot of people at least on the authoritarian side, they never take tests like those. They never know what they are exactly. It's just, oh, I'm this, and then they just look around with other people, and then once you get to the more libertarian, it's like, oh, there's so much diversity between everyone. But, like,
wait, you mean there's more than just Republican and Democrat? You're kidding?
Yeah,
like I'm sorry,
in the same spot.
I never would have.
You mean they're not the same? You mean they are the same? Yeah.
We have a video we're wanting to put together that addresses this issue, especially with the election coming up. And I'm assuming you're going to be old enough to vote by then, or not quite?
Yeah, I'm voting for 2018 or 2020.
You're old enough to vote, or you are voting?
I'm gonna vote. I'll be old enough.
Interesting. An anarchist who votes. Let's unpack.
But my parents are gonna make me. Like, there's no way I can get out of that.
No way you can get out of voting as an 18-year-old.
Yeah, my parents are very hard fast about me being an anarchist. They do not like it at all. Well, so
good thing their preferences don't mean shit.
Oh, I know. I try to, like, keep it out, because it always ends up like you're wrong or whatever. But
so are they asking you about it? Are they curious about it? Or are they just straight up just no?
Yeah, the main argument is you haven't lived, so you've never had to pay taxes or anything, so you don't have this, you can't have this opinion or whatever. It's like, I don't like taxes now. What makes you think I'm gonna like them when I'm forced to pay them? So
That's a
like,
good
when I
point.
have 50% of my income gone, what makes you think I'm gonna like them when that happens?
That makes sense. That does
Yeah.
make a lot of sense. That's
So,
crazy. I mean, I would imagine, like with my kids, I'm real open about this stuff. I don't
yeah.
force my thoughts and opinions, and I've never
Mm,
forced anything on them as far as ideology goes. Like they
yeah.
are free to think whatever they want. They're free to do their own research, their own exploration. They're free to,
Yeah.
I'm an atheist.
Mhm.
They are kind of questioning. They're, somewhere in between. They're going to church
Yeah.
sometimes and going with their
All good stuff.
friends. They're learning from, their local community about it, and they ask me about it sometimes. So it's like I just the idea that my parents were the same way. So the idea that somebody's parents would want to force a viewpoint, it doesn't surprise me, but I have trouble wrapping my mind around the idea of it. Like I can't even imagine, like from your perspective, I guess you're still living with them,
Yeah.
still feel like you need to respect their rules,
Mhm.
but at the same time they're like, while you're here, you're a Republican? Are they telling you which way to vote?
No, they're not telling me anything like that at all. The main thing, which I can actually agree with to an extent, is not happy that I always go so extreme with things.
Mm-hmm.
So like before I was a full blown conservative. Like I went to Trump rallies. I had Trump hat. I had a Trump flag on my wall. Everything I did was extreme, and then now I'm an extremist anarchist. So they don't like how I go extreme,
Yeah.
and from like at such paces. But a little bit of, you just, like, every time I say anything about politics, it's always like they always try and like change me on it.
Yeah.
But it never works. So I just try and like keep it out of that conversation.
But is it like respectful conversation, or is it more like just calling you an idiot? You're not old enough to know any better. Just trust me on this one. Is it that kind of tone, or I'm trying to get my mind around what kind of?
Yeah, it's respectful parenting, I guess, because parenting's always like somewhat like pushing. It always has some sort of push, and
Yeah.
then there's also that you can believe what you believe. It isn't right. Um,
I got
yeah.
you. I got you. I find it fascinating that you're actually taking the time and wanting to learn about this stuff. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like I didn't get interested in politics till I was probably in my mid-20s. I didn't know what a Republican and a Democrat was until mid-20s. I had no idea. Like it just never, like it was not on my radar. I've heard the terms, but I couldn't have told you then what it meant. Like it was just like the idea of politics has been, I'd say, over the last 5 to 8 years, roughly, it's really started to blow up, and people are starting to really pay attention at younger and younger ages because it's like in your face all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's because you're just ahead of your time, or if maybe it's just getting forced in your face so much that you kind of feel like you have to take a position. Is that, or maybe a little bit of both? I don't know. What do you think?
I honestly try and stay away from labels. Like I say, I'm an anarcho-individualist just because there's something there, so people know like somewhat what I believe. But in all honesty, I have anarcho-capitalist beliefs. I have individualist beliefs. I have mutualist beliefs. So like, and agorist beliefs. So there's mixes of everything. So it's just, I say I'm an individualist or just an anarchist because I don't want to be thrown in with different groups, but I also don't want to just not have, like, I want, like, especially because I run my page, so I want it to have some sort of like way for people to know a basis of what I am, at least.
Right, right. So this is the kind of way I look at it, and see if this will help you any at all. Is I only allow two labels for myself, and that's an anarchist and an atheist. And the reason I allow those labels is because it doesn't tell you what I do believe. All it does is tell you what I don't believe. Like the rest of it, you got to find out by talking to me. Like otherwise, you're not going to know. It just says I don't believe in God and I don't believe in government. That's pretty much it. Like you don't have any other information at that point. Like all the rest of it can go anywhere. It's just much. It is a shorthand. It's a nice way for people to kind of get a starting point. It makes sense. Mind if I make a suggestion about your channel?
Yeah.
So one of the things I've noticed is your posts. While that I agree with them, is you are that extreme viewpoint that you talk about. It comes across as very forceful, like drop an F-bomb and like almost like you're angry about it.
Yeah.
And what I would recommend, if you'll be willing to listen, is to basically that kind of aggression is not going to win hearts and minds. I've learned that myself, especially from the atheist perspective when I was younger. I was always in people's faces, the militant atheist kind of thing when I was a young man. And people don't respond to that. They're not going to engage you in conversation the way you might hope. All they're going to basically think is, fuck you, buddy. I'm not,
it's like ANCAP's calling everyone statists. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's one thing. I get the derogatory term there. I'm sitting there thinking, I don't think I've ever called anybody a statist. I know what you mean, though. It's
just in your face. It's like you're not trying to start any conversation. It's just like, oh, you're wrong. Or
yeah. So basically, like if I'm trying to put myself in the mind of somebody who's just come across your page, and I'm trying to figure out what you're about. I don't know anything about this anarchy thing, and then I see your post and your wordage, the way you talk is like, this guy seems really convinced. He's 17. He's a young man. Seems really fucking convinced. Like that's not going to encourage me to try to engage you in conversation. So I would just recommend maybe. Look at it from the perspective of the people that are reading your stuff who maybe don't know and come at it from more of a curious standpoint. What do you think about this? What do you why do you believe this? That kind of thing. It really does help. So I'm just a thought. Yeah. And I think you may find you get a lot more engagement with people and actual
I've lost, I used to have a lot of conversations in my comments and stuff, but I have lost a lot of conversations since I started doing that. Yeah. So I'll definitely take that into account.
Yeah. I mean, other than that, I mean, I don't know what else to convince you of other than this God thing that you do. I'm not really sure about that.
Okay, so I actually really dislike Christians because they're always you're pushing things on people. But when I for me, it's I believe what I believe, and I could care less what you believe. And then so it's I don't believe in the God that a lot of Christians and Catholics believe in. It's oh, he does everything. It's my main belief is he created us and then did what he needed to do, and then he leaves us alone and does big things if needed, but other than that we're good by ourselves. So it's that's where my legalization of drugs comes in. It's it's not our purpose to say no. It's
No, I think recently Anthony and I, he's my co-host for the show, for those who don't know, we got in this discussion back and forth about the drug legalization thing, and I'm straight up legalize everything. If people want to put toxic substances into their body, by all means, let them win the Darwin Award. Let them suffer the consequences and then act as an example to others about what not to do.
Yeah.
It's other than that, and then Anthony's no, we gotta restrict the real hard ones because this and that, because they might go out and hurt somebody. And I understand where he's coming from, but at the same time, you punish the behavior that's the result. Basically, you punish drunk driving, but you don't.
Yeah, you deal with it after.
Yeah, you deal with the actual violation of the crime. The actual when there is a victim, you deal with that and you punish that. And that is supposed to act as the example for others about what not to do and, how to, oh, shit, I saw this dude drink and drive. He went out and killed somebody with his car. He got in all this trouble. Now he's in jail. Basically, if that was the same kind of thought process we had with all drugs, regardless of how hard the drugs are, I think we might start to see a shift toward something more consistent in logic. And I think we wouldn't have to put these special boxes around all these different substances, and we wouldn't have to have an entire federal listing of all these different Schedule 1, Schedule 2, etc. drugs. It would just simplify everything so much. And then real quickly you'd weed out the people that couldn't handle their shit.
Yeah, I always say that. It's the people that do the drugs are going to die eventually. Let them die. They're going to die anyway. And then everyone's always bro, that's messed up. They're gonna die. You gotta help them. It's no, they're gonna do it anyway. I can make meth in my backyard if I want to. I'm gonna die from it. not your
check this out. Check this out. If they were legalized, and those people that are abusing right now under the cover of darkness, under the radar of the legal system, that do die, if it was legalized, those very same people, they'd be able to be more open about it. You could have markets around this stuff to make it safer. You could have help and rehabilitation centers that are more, where people aren't ashamed to go to because they don't want their friends and family knowing that they're, you know what I'm saying? It's a
I read something like a few months ago in Sweden. Medical heroin is legal. So like for people that are addicted to heroin, they can go get the heroin, and it's, if I remember correctly, it's safer than alcohol because it's medical grade and they give it in controlled doses. So those people that were doing heroin with other disgusting things in them that would kill them now have a safer than alcohol drug that is keeping them from dying. And then they even have, when you go and like get it, they have like rehabilitation. So it's like, instead of just continuously doing that, it's like, we'll help you get off of it at the same time. It's like, if you decriminalize it, that will happen with every drug because there's markets around that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of profit to be made.
It's nice that you can actually point to that as an example. Like we have this example of what happens when you decriminalize this stuff. And there's multiple examples. There's many countries that have done this or something similar, or they're starting to move in that direction. You even see like Colorado has just legalized mushrooms, for example, and certain psychedelics. It's like, let people do what they're going to do. They're going to do it anyway. I mean, like I see the right says, well, you can't ban guns because people who want guns are going to own guns anyway.
And then they say you have to ban drugs because it's dangerous. They're going to get them anyway. And then they already do.
Right, and then on the left you've got, well, you can't ban abortions because we're just going to go out and get them anyway. It's like the same exact argument, and they're correct in this. I believe they're correct in this. People, there will be a market created. There's still a market for these things. There's still a market for abortions. There's still a market for drugs. There's still a market for guns. So no matter what you make illegal, all it does is just increase the cost of them, first of all. It pushes it underground. It makes it to where there's an entire drug cartel system in Mexico that's sitting there bringing this shit up here constantly. Yeah. It's like, dude, like nobody even...
And when you're letting those cartels do what they have to do, you're getting more money, and then they just continue to bring more and more drugs because they can get more, and it's more money for them. So you're just making it worse.
And then you got everybody up at the top of our and then you got all of our politicians sitting here trying to combat the symptoms of all these problems. Oh, we've got millions of immigrants coming across the border, illegal immigrants coming across the border for this and that, and they're not addressing the original issue, the issue that they caused themselves to begin with. And nobody seems to wrap their mind around it. And I don't know if you've been keeping up with the show long enough. Anthony has started to express some anarchic tendencies here lately, so that's fun.
That's good.
I think I might be winning him over just little by little. You start to see, because I mean, you start to really study this stuff, and you see all the stuff the government does and does poorly, and you're like, and then you see the private market solution in many of these same instances, and you're like, that's so much better. The incentives are aligned properly. Like, come on, guys. Come on, guys. This is not. It's not that scary. It's not that scary. Let me ask you this. That one of the similar to me is when people hear you're an anarchist. One of the things they're concerned about is I don't know why, but the fucking roads. why are we concerned about the roads?
Yeah.
What's your response to that when people bring up that concern?
I have two actually. Countries or companies will build them. Or actually three, I should say. Companies could build them. You have companies that I'm not technically a capitalist. I can explain later if you want.
Sure.
But companies will build them because they have, once they build them, there's more people that will use them and they have more profit coming in. And then you have the other fact of the roads will still be there if the government just disappears. They won't just go away, and the companies could maintain them. And then number three, there's towns everywhere where farmers just got together and built miles of road because they just didn't have any. That will happen everywhere if it is needed.
Are you telling me if a road is needed, people will figure out a way?
I couldn't believe it.
Huh. That's interesting. That's very interesting.
Yep.
What a concept. Yeah, it kind of gets boring after a while when that's the first argument. Well, what about the roads? Like, oh, come on. You're so deep into it by now. It's like this was like Anarchy 101 for us.
Yeah. Yeah. That was literally one of the first things I learned. It's like a company will build a road.
So here's another one for you. Is like a couple other arguments you can bring up as well. Saying that without the government, how we build the roads is very much like saying without the slaves, how will we pick the cotton?
Yeah,
that's another one. Also, it's like, well, who's to say that if the government hadn't have built the roads, we wouldn't already have other alternative solutions that are more efficient than roads? Like the idea that we're driving around on cars on these certain predetermined pathways doesn't make a lot of sense when we have other technologies that allow us to, you may end up having some kind of land dune thing that can go over any kind of terrain in whatever direction. It can go up in the air and straight, you can fly. I don't know.
Forerunners. And then like Elon Musk proposed the tunnels under New York City. It's like, and his argument was you don't go straight, you go down, because there you can build as many tunnels as you want, and you can go anywhere throughout the city. And it's like, and Elon Musk is not a government; he's a company.
Yeah, there's other solutions, there's other possibilities, and I feel like we might be tying ourselves down to the roads.
Yeah,
like I said, other possible solutions may have already been in existence by now.
Yeah,
it's wild. So you mentioned something about you're not technically a capitalist. What's that mean? What do you mean by that?
I'm not a socialist. I was about to say I'm a free market socialist. That is not true. I'm an anarcho-individualist, so I believe in markets, not capitalism, in freed markets, because markets right now are not free. That is a fact. So I believe in freed markets, which is you can't say free markets because we don't have it yet. You say freed markets because it is a goal you have to work to, which is something I like. It actually sounds really nice to me. The definition of capitalism is it is an economic and political system in which countries, trade, and industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than by the state. So that would be corporatism if it was run by the state. And then you have with that, there's capitalism is focused on the creation of wealth and ownership of capital and factors of production. And then you have the free market, which is focused on the exchange of wealth or goods for services. So and services. So I'm a maid or a pool guy or something, and then I need my lawn trimmed. So I do someone's pool for them to mow my lawn every week. And then where capitalism is creating wealth for yourself and the company instead of for yourself personally and for your community or whatever.
But they're not necessarily mutually exclusive. I mean, you can have both.
You can have a free market capitalist system 100%, which is what ANCAP's won. But which is one of the things that's brought me away from anarcho-capitalism, is a lot of the people that claim you should have a private police force, which I don't know if you've ever heard anyone say that or anything. But to me, there's no difference between private police and government police. They're still patrolling the area, and they can be bought if they're private even. So that's
we already have private police right now.
Yeah.
In the form of like security guards or bouncers at buildings. You already kind of have that model already set up.
Yeah. That's where I fully believe you can have whatever force you want on your property, but once you have, like, I've heard a lot of anarcho-capitalists advocate for cops, private police that patrol the area and like arrest people and put them in jail with private jails, which is way past the point for me.
As long as it is agreed upon, say me and my entire community all agree that this is something we want to do. We'll all chip in a little money for this. It's voluntary, Hey, as long as nobody's getting hurt and everybody's happy with that arrangement, I mean, private police away. I mean, it's not bothering nobody.
Yeah.
I mean,
if it's agreed by everyone.
Yeah, and the great thing about that model is that if I want to start my own private police company to compete with it, I'm allowed to do that.
Yeah.
And I could say, well, I know you guys are paying these guys $10 a week for your security. We can do it for $8. Or we can do it for the same price, but we can do it better because X, and Y.
Yeah.
It's like, so it allows those possible solutions where in the current paradigm we don't have that
Yeah, the government has the monopoly on force. And if you have mercenaries and stuff, but those mercenaries have to be certified by the government. Yeah. And it's like they can accept or deny whoever they want.
Right. So, definitions aside, what do you think is the main difference between capitalism and free markets? Because I kind of use the terms almost interchangeably.
Yeah. For me, at least, I don't know about other free market people and other capitalists, but capitalism is more where you have big company, or not big companies, but companies in general that have products and they sell them, and then you have markets over here, which is like the small business, the mom and pop shop in your city or your town or whatever, and then you trade something, or you just something small, and then once you have like capitalism, it's something bigger. So you have like big companies. Like I know a corporation isn't possible in anarchy because it's a government. It's with government intervention, but it's something bigger, like a corporation.
Right.
I don't know if that sounded good in explanation or not.
I think so. I think you're talking about more of a difference in degree rather than kind.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I think being a capitalist, I don't see any inherent problem with it. The profit motive, I don't inherently see any problem with it, as long as you're free to do it. As long as everybody's free to do it, and you don't have these special regulations, the government-controlled regulations, telling people, you got to have this license to enter the marketplace. You got to have this certification. You got to have this. It's like once you start having that, what that is like you alluded to earlier, was this corporatism, where corporations can then lobby the government, have them put in place all these regulations that, well, me as a big company, I can afford to cover those regulations and fall in line with those, but a smaller company can't do that, and it really just shuts them out of the marketplace altogether. It shuts down competition. It's the exact opposite of capitalism or free market capitalism.
100%. And I say, like, you should encourage smaller companies and everything, but I don't, like, you go to anarcho-communists, and they don't believe you should be able to start a company in any sense. And you go to ANCAPs, and it's like you should not be able to have communism, at least in a lot of cases with them I've talked to. So, like, it's in the middle, which is where I am, basically. It's, I don't care what you do. Start a big company and sell things, or start a commune with your people. So.
All right. Oh, let me hit the right button here. So I brought up a quick chart here that shows, it's from pedia.com, the difference between free market and capitalism. So maybe we can get a little more clarification. You won't be able to see this right now, but you'll be able to see it in the edited version.
Okay.
So it says free market is an economic system which prices are determined by unrestricted competition between privately owned businesses, whereas capitalism is an economic system in which a country's trade and the industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than by the state. So I guess it's the big differentiation here is it's within a country. It's still, capitalism still has to require a government exist for it to work. I guess that's kind of what they're saying here.
Yeah.
It's free markets are focused on the exchange of wealth, goods, or services, whereas capitalism focuses on the creation of wealth and ownership of capital and factors of production, which sounds basically the same thing. It's just you got to own the machines.
Yeah.
That produces the goods. Obviously, that makes sense. It sounds like the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. Free markets can have a monopoly on market and prevent free competition, and capitalism leads to free market. Or leads to free competition in the economy. I don't understand how they got that. I'm gonna have to dig a little farther into that, because that ideally, capitalism should be able to. You can have a monopoly as well. I don't inherently have any problem with monopolies. Do you?
To an extent, I'm fine with a monopoly if your product is good enough and everyone's buying it. Mm-hmm. But when you get to the point where, like, you have these companies that are buying up a bunch of land with, like, specific resources on them, and then other companies are not allowed to have them, like, those resources, that's when it gets a little shitty for me. So, like, if you buy a salt, like an area, like, say you're a salt company, you buy a huge salt mine, and it restricts anyone in that whole entire region from being able to sell salt. that's a little far for me.
Gotcha. Oh, as far as market restrictions and things like that, cornering the market, so to speak. Which, I mean that is it's a strategy. It's not inherently harming anybody. Yeah. So I still don't see any moral problem with that inherently. I mean, probably people get a little pissed off about it because this local company's buying up all the salt mines and then they're increasing the price. But at the same time, guess what happens when you increase the prices so much? People start trying to find alternatives, or they won't use salt, or they'll, get pissed off and they'll boycott the company. So, there's other free market solutions to these problems other than let's go in there with guns and put regulations and if anybody, if anybody doesn't think that these big companies aren't going in there and controlling the government anyway, like the idea of using the government to control the companies is not, it's not logical. It's not consistent. Not it's like, Jesus. Anyway, so I guess we gave everybody a nice little lesson on the difference between free market and capitalism. Let's see what the audience thinks. Maybe we're missing something here, but I've always used them pretty interchangeably. I don't see any problem with either one, to be honest. But as far as being a communist, I don't have any inherent problem with communists, like an anarcho-communist either.
Yeah, I don't. I think like once you get up towards Stalinism and you try and force it on other people, that's where you should get shot in the face because you're trying to impede on my rights to do what I want. But like anarcho-communists, I'm perfectly fine with. Like I've met a ton of them that are just like, "Hey, I'm gonna live in my commune. You can start your company over there."
Exactly. As long as nobody's hurting nobody, as long as everybody is minding their own business, doing their own thing. Hey, you can have a commune. I don't care. Maybe it's not for me. It might be for you. You might be the kind of person that operates perfectly within a commune. Yeah. By all means, go for it. I don't care. I'm not against it. Again, I guess you and I were just against the gun in the room, telling us how we should and shouldn't live our lives, which is very funny because I don't know if you've interacted with people in anarcho-communist communities, like on Facebook.
Oh, no.
Those people are vicious.
Yeah.
And they sound like they are straight up statist, the way they talk.
Mm-hmm. There's like multiple group chats I'm in. There's just like a bunch of communists. There's just like, shoot your boss. Like, it's like go into work and shoot your boss. It's like, are you serious? You sound more like a statist than Pinochet. It's like, yeah.
That's wild. All right, man. I really appreciate you coming on and having this chat with me today. You're welcome to come on back anytime you want to. Maybe there's some current events going on or whatever you want to discuss it. Just hit me up and we'll set up another episode. It's been fun. I've really enjoyed this.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, and you want to tell people where they can reach you if they want to.
On Instagram at Texas_anarchist. It should be an anarcho-individualist flag with a cross on it.
All right, folks. And if you don't know what that is, you're going to find out real quick. So go head over to Instagram, follow this guy. He's got some interesting shit. He promised today to tone it down a little bit and be more curious about people and more, you want to educate people, not yell at them off the ledge. Anyway. Again, I really appreciate you coming on, and until next time, this has been another uncomfortable conversation without a condom. And listen, if you want to be a guest on the show, make sure you head over to unframeofmind.com and snoop around a little bit, see what we got going on, and fill out the form, and we'll be glad to have you on the show in a future episode. So, all right, y'all, peace out.